A boring history for sleep, why medieval shoemakers sang to their leather at dawn. Welcome, gentle listener, to Whispers of History, your soft landing pad for slow stories, sleepy facts, and the oddly poetic details nobody asked for. Tonight, we're slipping quietly into the cobbled backstreets of medieval Europe, where shoemakers wake before the sun not to rush but to sing, yes, sing to their leather. You probably won't make it through this day. That's not a threat. It's just a very soft promise that you'll be sound asleep somewhere between boiled shoe glue and overly optimistic medieval work songs. As if your eyes are already drooping, go ahead and like this video. And if you're awake enough to move your fingers, drop a comment with your location and local time. We'd love to know who's drifting off where. Now take a slow breath, loosen your shoulders, and tuck your thoughts under something warm. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You wake to a sound that is not a rooster. It's softer than that. Thinner somehow, a reedy tune, maybe a minor chord too ambitious for this hour. You're lying on a straw-stuffed mattress in a room that smells faintly of onions, wet wool, and ambition. Your eyes blink open. Dawn hasn't broken yet, but something else has, the silence. Oh, it's the Shoemakers again. Down the narrow alley where puddles never dry and chamber pots go to retire, you hear them. Singing, low, nasal, and oddly sincere. It's not good, not exactly, but it's earnest. You shuffle to the window and look out. There, under a crooked timbered awning, Master is hunched over a wooden bench. He cradles a lump of damp cowhide like it's a baby bird, and he sings to it in a voice that could curdle ale. And no, this isn't a one-off thing. Shoemakers in the 13th century did often sing while working, especially in the early hours when they softened leather with water and hope. It was believed that the human voice, especially a calm, repetitive one, helped the leather become more supple. Was it science? Not quite. Was it ritual? Entirely. One shoe at a time, the day begins. You step into your tunic, which is about 2 generations too short and smells a little like yesterday's firewood. But it's fine. No one here is aiming for elegance. You clomp downstairs to the family hearth. A pot of thin porridge simmers, bubbling with exactly 1 oat's worth of enthusiasm. Your mother hands you a hunk of bread, which doubles as both breakfast and a light dental challenge. As you chew, you notice something odd, a small leather pouch tied to the back door. Inside, sage, rosemary, and a single tooth. No one talks about it, it's just one of those things. A cultural tidbit for the night. Some medieval cobblers carried teeth or bones in their tool belts, supposedly to prevent blisters or curses. Historians still debate whether this was medicinal, magical, or just someone having a bit too much fun at the tannery. Now, as the sun bleeds slowly into the sky like ink in cold water, you step out into the waking world. Your job today, not glamorous. You'll be delivering hides from the tanner to the shoemaker. It's a route you know well, 4 alleys, 2 rude dogs, and 1 woman who throws turnips at people she doesn't recognize. You breathe in. The streets smell like ash, bread, and that faint metallic tang of tools just beginning to sing. Your boots, well, more like foot prisons, slap against the stones as you make your way toward the tanner's yard. It's muddy. It's always muddy. A kind of eternal stew made from rain, waste, and whatever the horses politely left behind. You pass the baker's shop. The shutters are still drawn, but the scent of rye is trying very hard to escape. Somewhere a baby cries, somewhere else someone is arguing with a chicken. This is normal. When you reach the tanner's yard, the smell hits you like a brick wrapped in spoiled butter. Welcome to tanning, the fragrant medieval art of turning dead skin into useful stuff. You wait at the gate, trying not to breathe too obviously. A boy not much older than you trudges out with a dripping bundle of hides. He doesn't speak, just hands it over like it's a cursed object and walks away. You sling the damp leather over your shoulder, praying your tunic survives the day. Now here's the curious thing. Tanning in the Middle Ages often used dog feces and fermented urine to soften the hides. Yes, that's why you smell like an unspeakable accident. You're welcome. The smell is so legendary that entire districts, like London's, became known for it. Shoemakers lived close to tanners, both for convenience and because no one else would have of them. And as you walk back through those familiar alleys, you hear the singing again. This time, it's a different voice. A younger apprentice perhaps, trying to match pitch with someone who clearly doesn't believe in key signatures. One verse about strength, one about patience. One, oddly enough, about pigeons, you don't question it. By the time you arrive back at Master's shop, he's already stretching the leather across his lap, humming as he works the hide with a dull-bladed tool. He nods to you, not warmly, not coldly. Just the way someone does when they've spent decades talking mostly to materials that don't talk back. You set the bundle down, he doesn't look up but he mutters, "This one's got a good hum to it." You don't know what that means, you don't ask. Historians still debate whether medieval shoemakers believed the leather could hear them, or if the singing was more of a self-soothing chant to get through 14-hour workdays. Possibly both. Possibly neither. As you sit on a small stool and begin oiling last week's scraps, you hum a little too. Not because you believe it helps, but because the silence feels heavier than usual today. Maybe the leather does listen, maybe not. But you sing anyway, off-key and quiet, and no one tells you to stop. Not even the leather. The shop is alive with a kind of tired rhythm. The kind of rhythm that doesn't rush or dazzle, just keeps going like a mule who's accepted its life choices. You sit cross-legged on the packed earth floor, rubbing oil into scraps of leather while Master mutters at his all like it insulted his ancestors. The air smells of tallow, wool, and something faintly sweet. Probably the honeyed mustard poultice the apprentice is wearing on a burn he refuses to talk about. Today's task is simple. Cut and trim leather soles and don't slice your thumb like last week. The knife you use is older than you, with a handle polished by the ghosts of past apprentices. You draw it along the hide, slow and steady, letting it whisper against the grain. As outside, the sky begins its reluctant shift toward brightness. Chickens wander the alley like they're considering unionizing. A dog barks at a rat who clearly isn't in the mood. And somewhere down the street, a town crier bellows about taxes with all the subtlety of a lute being stepped on. It's inside tunes out the world. He's humming again, same melody, same packing. You begin to realize it's less a song and more a kind of working lullaby. The same phrases over and over like stitching in sound. Here's your historical fact of the day. In many medieval guilds, especially among cobblers, these chants passed down through generations. Some were instructional, how to bind, when to wet, what not to forget, while others were more superstitious. A kind of spoken spell, with leather as the enchanted beast to be tamed. The weird bit, some of those work songs included verses about softening the beast's memory. As if the leather still remembered being an animal and needed convincing to behave. You pause, pressing your hand flat against the hide. It's warm from the sun, feels like nothing, feels like everything. I talk to it, mutters. You blink, talk to what? The soul, he says, not looking up. Else it'll never listen to your feet. You say nothing, you're not entirely sure he's wrong. Historians still debate whether medieval craftsmen really believed tools and materials had temperaments, or if they just pretended to make the long hours pass with a bit more meaning. After a few weeks of doing this yourself, you start to understand the appeal of pretending. As a customer wanders in just before noon, she's the kind that makes you straighten your back and wish your tunic were less moss-adjacent. Her hat is wide-brimmed, tilted at a flirty angle and completely impractical for weather or physics. You instantly distrust it. She orders 2 pairs, one for market, one for church. Measures her feet with a string, nods once and doesn't write anything down. She tries to flirt. He tries to ignore her. It's a very short play. When she leaves, the silence returns like an old friend. You exhale and return to your bench. Outside, the street has softened into gold. Sunlight glints off puddles and dust, turning the alley into a vaguely romantic mess. Your stomach grumbles. Throws you half a radish. Lunchtime is not so much an event as it is a break in routine. Bread again. A bit of hard cheese that tastes like chalk's confident cousin, and something green that once aspired to be lettuce. You sit on a barrel just outside the shop, chewing slowly while the sunlight tries its best to make everything look meaningful. Across the street, an old man plays a one-string fiddle with all the elegance of a cat fight. 2 small boys throw pebbles at a wall. A chicken judges you from atop a crate. It's peaceful in that crumbly, dusty kind of way. The apprentice, whose name you think might be Sim or possibly Tim, joins you, gnawing on a turnip like it's a personal insult. He smells faintly of glue and regret. He speaks without looking up. Leather sang back to me once. Zayuba. He continues. Was soaking a bad batch, fell asleep by the vat, woke up, swear it was humming. You nod slowly, mostly to avoid disagreeing with someone holding a knife. A cultural tidbit. It was once believed that improperly tanned leather would curse the shoes it became, causing bad luck, blisters, or even falls. Some shoemakers swore by singing to their hides to chase out any stubborn spirits left behind in the skin, especially if the cow was, according to them, a bit dramatic in life. Historians still debate whether this belief came from pagan traditions, early Christian symbolism, or simply too much time inhaling tannery fumes. Back inside, you return to stitching. The rhythm is hypnotic, needle in, pulled tight, not repeat, like breathing but for calloused hands. It inspects your work, grunts. It's the equivalent of a standing ovation. Shoes, he says, are promises between ground and bone. You think that sounds poetic or possibly insane, but he's not wrong. Every pair made here will carry someone's story through mud, market stalls, and marriage proposals. Through disasters, dances, and maybe the occasional sprint away from an angry goose. You finish the day's pair just as the light begins to slip. Outside, the shadows stretch long and dramatic, like they've been waiting all day for their moment. You place the finished shoes on the shelf with quiet reverence. They look plain, brown, sturdy, but they're more than that. They're proof that something was made, held, shaped by hand and heart. You hum one last line of song as you hang up your apron. And as you step outside into the cooling air, you swear, just for a moment, that the shoes hummed back. The evening drapes itself lazily over the town, like a cat stretching across a warm bench. The air has cooled just enough to carry the scent of rosemary and chimney soot. Someone nearby is boiling cabbage, and the smell is politely intrusive. You take the long way home, past the baker's oven and the chapel steps where an old woman mutters prayers into the wind. She blesses your boots as you pass, not you your boots, and drops a sprig of mint in your pocket without explanation. You nod like this is normal because in this town it is. Your feet ache, not in the noble, heroic sense. In the I've been squatting near an anvil for 9 hours and my spine has opinions about its sense. Your hands carry the scent of leather, lanolin, and faint disappointment. Back home, your mother is sweeping the floor with more intensity than necessary. The fire pops cheerfully in the hearth, offering the illusion of warmth rather than actual heat. Your younger brother is peeling onions with the seriousness of a monk copying scripture. He sniffs dramatically. No one comforts him. The dinner is a thick stew, barley, root vegetables, and a suspiciously chewy protein that no one dares identify. It fills your stomach with that humble medieval joy, not being hungry anymore. As after supper, your father inspects the shoes you helped finish. He runs a hand along the stitching, nods approvingly, and says, "They'll last through rain, war, or marriage," which in this town is the same category of endurance. Now here's your historical anchor for the night. Medieval shoes weren't left or right. That's right, just one generic shape for both feet. You broke them in until your toes simply gave up and adapted. Shoe horns, luxury, insoles, a myth, comfort, hilarious. As the fire burns lower, you stretch out on your cot by the window. The stars begin to appear, poking holes in the sky like candle flames behind a curtain. Somewhere in the alley, a lute is being played in what could charitably be called a rhythm. A dog howls. The lute surrenders. You think of the leather on the bench, resting now in the quiet dark. You wonder, do the shoes dream of the cows they once were? Do they remember hooves, fields, soft grass? Or have they given up their memories like the rest of you, melted into shape by song and steam? You drift, eyes blinking slower, breath deepening. Outside, the wind shifts, and from far off, you think you hear another cobbler singing his leather to sleep. Or maybe it's just the street cat again. Either way, the night accepts it. The next morning begins with a sneeze. Not yours, your brother. He's allergic to something no one has identified but seems to be everything. Straw, air, his own sleeves. You sit up slowly, every joint auditioning for a medieval orchestra. Your spine creaks, your knees mutter, your elbows might be plotting a rebellion. The window is fogged from the inside. You wipe a circle clear and peek out. A fine mist curls through the streets, wrapping chimneys and rooftops in whispers. The town looks softer in fog, like it's been powdered with memory. The shoemakers are already at it, you hear them humming. Different melodies today, more rhythmic, like someone taught a sparrow to beatbox. You smile without meaning to. You tug on your boots, now permanently shaped to the geometry of your personal suffering, and shuffle down to the shop. The apprentice is already there, using a hammer as if it owes him money. Seated with the stillness of an ancient tree, is stirring a small pot of something foul-smelling. He lifts it, glues. You nod, mornings. He gestures to the table. Today we patch. The left-footed knight returned. Yes, sir, of nearly peaceful manner. Famous for two things: dramatic entrances and dragging his left boot like it wronged him in a past life. You set to work, trimming a new sole while stirs glue with the reverence of a monk making soup. The smell is uniquely medieval, equal parts boiled horse, wet bark, and existential dread. Your obscure tidbit for the morning: some medieval shoemakers used fish bladder glue. Yes, fish. They believed it added flexibility to the shoe and encouraged kindness in the sole. Not soul, soul. Historians still debate whether that last bit was metaphor or just a typo that got out of hand. You reach for the awl, your hand finding it by habit alone. The tool fits your palm like it belongs there, its handle smooth from generations of use. You press it into the leather, steady and firm, like drawing breath through your fingers. Clears his throat. Hold it like you'd hold a lie you don't want caught. You pause, blink so loosely. He grins, exactly. The door creaks open mid-morning. In walks a nun with a bundle of worn sandals and the posture of someone unimpressed by life. She drops them on the bench and announces, "They walked 3 pilgrimages and 1 heretic trial. They deserve better. You and Sim nod solemnly, as if the sandals are veterans returning from war. The rest of the day slips by in shoe time, measured not by clocks but by heels replaced, laces knotted, and the slow fade of daylight across the shop floor. By evening, your hands are dyed with dye and your breath smells faintly of boiled hide and peppermint root, a failed attempt at freshness. You're tired in a way that feels deep, useful, not dramatic, just honest. As you sweep the shavings into a bucket, hums his closing note, same as every day. One long, low tone like the Shoemakers' Amen. While you hum it too under your breath, it's silly, it's sacred. And for a moment, everything fits just right. You sleep well that night, not because your bed is comfortable, it isn't, but because there's a rhythm to exhaustion that rocks you unconscious before your thoughts can complain. You dream of souls walking on clouds, of boots that whisper back, of leather that sings in your voice. While you wake to rains. Not a storm, not a proper downpour, just that quiet drizzle that seeps into everything and makes your socks damp before you've even stood up. You sigh. Somewhere a rooster crows half-heartedly, like it's reconsidering its contract. You lace up your boots with fingers still stiff from yesterday. They're a little now. Rain swells the leather, makes it grumpy. You respect that. You're not particularly fond of mornings either. As outside, the street is a mess of puddles and soft curses. Children leap between stones like performing monks. A cartwheel gets stuck in the mud, and two grown men argue in tones so calm they might actually be in love. You trudge toward the shop, shoulders hunched, rain slipping down the back of your collar like an uninvited thought. Is already inside, of course, he always is. He doesn't wear shoes in the shop, claims the soles interrupt the wood's memory. You don't ask what that means, you're too damp to care. The apprentice Simortim is chewing something aggressively. Possibly dried apple, possibly a clump of wool, it's hard to tell. A new order came in, he mutters, voice muffled. For the mayor's wife. You glance at the list. Soft-heeled slippers lined in sheep's wool dyed pale blue, meant for indoor use. Luxury, says with a sneer you've only ever seen directed at politicians and goats. They won't survive a week. You get to work anyway. Wool lining, softened leather, careful stitching in patterns no one will see. It's the shoemaking equivalent of embroidery on underpants, precious and pointless but done with devotion. In historical fact time, wealthy women in the 14th century often had separate pairs of indoor and outdoor shoes. Some were decorated with embroidery or silver thread and worn only for appearances. It wasn't about comfort. It was about being seen not needing comfort. A cultural tidbit, some households hired dedicated shoe maids whose only job was to dust and scent the footwear. Lavender if you were elegant, mint if you were dramatic, camphor if you were trying to avoid rats. You run your fingers along the stitched edge of the slipper and wonder what your feet might feel like if they were ever treated like royalty. Ty chuckles suddenly, once made a pair for a countess who wore them on her elbows. You blink her elbows. She said they were more poetic that way, he shrugs. She paid double, I didn't ask. You stitch in silence after that, the rain drumming on the roof like impatient fingers. At midday, the rain lets up. The sky turns the color of old parchment. The apprentice leans back and sighs, stretching like a cat made of bad decisions. And hands you a pair of finished boots and says, "Deliver them to the blacksmith. And don't let the chickens follow you this time." You don't ask, you just go. The blacksmith's forge is across the square, near the well and the tree that leans like it knows a secret. You carry the boots in a cloth bundle, warm from the shop, their leather still soft with oil. The square is busy in that meandering medieval way. Nothing happens quickly, but everything is happening. A juggler is performing for a small crowd and dropping exactly one ball per trick, which seems to be part of the charm. A boy chases a goose who clearly does not wish to be chased. An old man is loudly selling onions that no one is buying. You pass the weaver's stall. She nods, hands covered in blue dye. She always smells faintly of crushed berries and vengeance. At the forge, the heat hits you like a confession. The blacksmith, Myra, is shaping a horseshoe with the kind of focus you'd usually reserve for complex surgery or embroidery near royalty. Her arms glisten with sweat. Her boots are, you note with pride, ones made last spring. "A delivery," you say, holding out the boots. She takes them, inspects them like they've insulted her mother, then grunts approvingly. "Good sole, quiet leather." You pause and quiet. She nods, "Won't squeak when I walk. Don't want the horses thinking I'm nervous." It makes a sense, sort of. You linger, mostly to avoid going back too soon. Myra offers you water from a clay jug. It tastes like minerals and mild suspicion. "I ever tell you about the time refused to use ox hide?" she asks suddenly. You shake your head. Said the spirit of the ox was too stubborn, wouldn't bend. Told the customer to try goat leather instead, claimed goats have cooperative souls. You raise an eyebrow. Historians still argue about whether that was spiritual belief or just being picky, she says, smirking. You leave the forge with warm hands and a head full of questions. On your way back, the sun breaks through the clouds in lazy shafts. The puddles reflect rooftops like miniature oil paintings. You pass by the chapel and see someone praying with their shoes off. Out of respect, or just to give their toes a break, you're not sure. Back at the shop is humming again. You recognize the tune now. It's the same 3-note loop he's always used. A cobbler's lullaby, worn smooth like everything else in this life. You sit down, the mayor's wife's slippers are done. You dust them with crushed mint leaves because it's Thursday and insists on fresh feet for fools. You don't argue. The shop smells of glue, mint, and the oddly hopeful scent of warmed leather. You feel the quiet settle in again, like a thick wool cloak. And as evening leans in once more, you find yourself humming too. Evening folds itself over the town like dough over a filling, soft at first, then heavy. A hush settles, not quite silence, more like the sound of everything slowing down together. Doors creak shut. Oil lamps flicker into life. And for a few glorious moments, no one is shouting about onions. You finish wiping down the workbench, tracing your thumb across a groove carved by someone long gone. Perhaps an apprentice before you. Perhaps himself in another life before his beard was half silver and his opinions fully formed. Tomorrow, he says without looking up, we do repairs and take stock. You groans. The stock day is not glamorous. It means counting things that don't like being counted. Leather scraps, buckles, heels, half-formed soles, ancient bits of twine, tools that were last used when the plague was trending. None of it is organized. Some of it may be alive. Still, you nod, because complaining is futile and believes suffering builds character, or at least strengthens wrist muscles. You step out into the street, breathing in the scent of smoke, bread crust, and faintly sour wool. A cat follows you for 6 paces, then gets bored and investigates a suspicious shadow. At home, your mother has made a turnip pie. The crust is optimistic. The filling is warm. Your brother has eaten most of it before you arrive. You claim the last slice with the grace of a highway thief and a prayer of gratitude. You eat quietly while your father recounts a tale about the mayor's cousin's goose, who now holds a grudge against the church bells. No one questions it. That night, you lie awake a little longer than usual. The leather glue has crept under your fingernails and into your dreams. You stare at the wooden ceiling beams and count the knots, each one shaped like a bird or a face or a really aggressive carrot. And just before sleep pulls you under, you think you hear it. The gentle hum of shoemakers singing to their materials in the dark. A strange, almost holy lullaby for leather and bone. Maybe the shoes hum back in their own way. Or maybe that's just the wind arguing with the shutters again. You wake to the sound of something falling. Not a crash, more of a polite thump, like an object admitting defeat. You sit up, rain again. Of course, you dress in the half-light, your tunic sticking to one side like it remembers being left near the hearth too long. You find a piece of dry bread in your satchel and gnaw on it like you're in a folk tale about hardship and perseverance. As at the shop, the door is ajar, not unusual. Claims locks insult the spirit of trade. You step inside and find the chaos has begun. Buckles scattered like metal confetti. Bits of twine knotted into what may be a friendship bracelet for a ghost. A shoehorn that looks recently chewed. I'll start with the lasts, says, handing you a scribbled list that may or may not be in Latin. You sigh, set down your things and begin. A historical fact break. Cobblers used wooden foot molds called lasts, carefully shaped to mimic the human foot. They were treasured tools passed down and personalized. A master shoemaker's lasts were often buried with him, like sacred instruments too loyal to be inherited. You pick through the pile, recognizing some old favorites. The wide one for the town miller. the narrow one for the overly delicate friar. The one with a chunk missing, rumored to have been bitten by a particularly aggressive bride. You sort them into rows, stacking them with the reverence of a librarian shelving sacred texts. Each one carries a whisper of someone's stride, their limp, their way of standing slightly askew when nervous. Next come the scraps. Insists on keeping every of leather, claiming some soles return smaller. You don't know what that means, but you keep the pieces sorted by shape, size, and potential for reincarnation. Zinsim arrives late, hair wild, eyes sleep-puffed. He apologizes by handing you half a boiled egg and a shrug. You accept both. Together, you dig through uncovering forgotten tools, one mummified mouse, and a note written in verse about how to stitch a spiral. It's unsigned, but written in awkward, poetic scrawl. Sing to the bend, stitch to the seam, the shape holds fast, if shaped like a dream. You read it aloud, pretends not to notice. Here's your obscure tidbit. Some medieval cobblers believed spiral stitching could confuse evil spirits, especially if done while chanting backwards. Several pairs of ceremonial shoes from the 1300s feature invisible spiral patterns beneath the insole, hidden protections against misstep, misfortune, or mild demonic influence. Historians still debate whether this was spiritual engineering or just a bored apprentice making pretty patterns. You spend the rest of the day elbows deep in what can only be described as leather archaeology. Each drawer yields treasures: curved needles, half-made children's shoes, a scrap of parchment with someone's doodle of a cow smiling. By late afternoon, the rain has stopped. A ray of sunlight slides through the window, highlighting a cloud of dust and exactly one very smug spider. Surveys the now tidy shelves. He doesn't smile, but he does exhale like someone who might, someday, consider smiling. Well, he says, not bad. Which, coming from him, is basically applause. As the sun begins to slant toward evening, you sit on the step outside the shop, boots off, feet aching but whole. You hum the cobbler's tune quietly, almost thoughtlessly. And this time, for just a heartbeat, you think you hear something hum back. The next morning, there's fog again, thicker than usual. The kind of fog that doesn't just sit politely on rooftops, but creeps into your sleeves and tugs at your eyebrows like it's testing your patience. You stumble to the shop with your collar up and your boots dragging slightly. Sleep had you tight last night, wrapped around your limbs like a second blanket. Dreams of shoes again. This time they danced, not gracefully, more like poorly carved puppets in a tavern brawl, but the effort was there. This is already working when you arrive, naturally. He's cutting leather with the kind of precision usually reserved for heart surgery or cheese sculpting. Fog's good for glue, he says without looking up. You nod, moist air. He grunts, which you've learned could mean yes, no, or the glue spirits are pleased. Today's task, arch supports. Simple, repetitive, slightly tedious, but necessary. Most of the town walks like they're dodging invisible ducks, believes it's bad posture, you suspect it's bad roads. You spend the morning shaping small strips of leather, soaking them briefly, bending them over the heated arch molds, and pressing them down with stones warmed on the hearth. It's quiet, methodical, almost meditative. Here's your historical fact. Contrary to popular belief, medieval shoes did not offer much in the way of support. Most were flat, barely shaped, and softened into the wearer's unique anatomy over time. Arch supports, when used, were rare and often reserved for the elderly, the injured, or the extremely dramatic. And speaking of the dramatic, the mayor stops by. He doesn't knock, just enters like he owns oxygen. He's wearing a red tunic stitched with gold thread and an expression that says, "I don't pay taxes for discomfort." Doesn't look up. The mayor begins, "My boots squeak." Nods solemnly, "They're trying to warn you." The mayor blinks and adds, "Probably about taxes." You try not to laugh, you fail, but you do it silently. The mayor demands replacements. Something quieter, more authoritative, offers suede. The mayor, not understanding what suede is, agrees anyway. As he leaves, leans over and mutters, "Suede is leather that's forgotten how to be proud." You return to your task, holding the arch mold gently between your palms. It smells like warm wood, beeswax, and faint regret. The perfect recipe for medieval orthopedics. As around noon, you break for lunch. The apprentice has acquired something resembling a pie. It smells of onion, thyme, and a hopeful goat. You all eat with quiet appreciation. It's the kind of silence only truly good or truly questionable food can earn. The fog lifts slowly, like a curtain on an indifferent stage. Light spills back into the streets, touching puddles and rooftops, and one extremely round cat asleep in a basket of apples. You sit by the shop window, shaping one last insert. Outside, children chase a hoop with a stick. A shoeless monk wanders past humming a hymn about bread. A woman laughs so loudly she startles a horse. The town is alive in its small, soft way. And for the first time in a while you feel stitched in. Like part of something, not big, not glamorous, but real. It's market day. You can tell because the noise hits before you open your eyes. Bells, shouting, the high-pitched squawk of a merchant who thinks his cabbages are revolutionary. You dress quickly, snatch a hunk of cheese with the enthusiasm of someone who knows it won't come again soon, and head out into the chaos. The square is full. Tables stacked with dried herbs, clay pots, woven baskets, fish that look surprised to be there. You dodge through the crowd, your satchel heavy with deliveries. 2 pairs of walking boots, 1 soft pair of chapel slippers, and a scandalously red pair of dancing shoes wrapped in linen and discretion. You drop the first pair at the baker. He grins, slips them on, and stomps twice. "Perfect," he declares. "My toes feel hopeful." Though the slippers go to the priest's sister. She smiles, nods once, and pays in freshly pressed lavender sprigs. You accept. We'll consider that fair trade. Now comes the dancing shoes. You find their owner standing near the flower stall, draped in silks, holding a fox fur muff even though it's warm. Her hair is braided like a cathedral, and her smile is the kind of thing that makes mirrors nervous. You hand over the shoes, she opens the linen and gasps, delighted. Scandalous, she whispers, clearly thrilled. Oh, they're red, you say, they'll be seen. She leans in, that's the point. Here's your historical fact. In medieval Europe, red shoes were considered both luxurious and slightly indecent. Red dye was expensive and required either imported cochineal or crushed roots. The color was associated with boldness, status, and scandalously romance. Your obscure tidbit. In parts of southern France, unmarried women weren't allowed to wear red shoes unless given permission by the village council. Historians still debate whether this was about modesty or controlling dye budgets. You accept her payment, silver and a smile, and turn back toward the shop. You arrive just as is pouring fresh glue into a ceramic bowl. How was market? Loud, you say, scented like cabbage and defiance. He nods approvingly. You unload the satchel. He examines the red shoes, running his hand over the empty linen wrap like it still holds warmth. She'll dance in those, he says. You nod, she wanted to be seen. He smiles faintly. People always do, that's why they come to us, feet on the ground, eyes in the crowd. You sit down, legs aching but oddly satisfied. The smell of glue and heated leather is oddly comforting now, like a memory that never belonged to you but fits anyway. The day winds down. Outside, a fiddler plays badly near the tavern, a horse sighs. A child tries to sell rocks as healing stones. A shoemaker hums. And inside the shop you hum too, off-key, half-hearted, and completely sincere. Like someone shaping the day into something that fits. Though the next day is too bright. Not cheerful bright, not spring bright, just suspiciously bright. The kind of sunlight that feels like it's about to reveal secrets. Dust floats visibly through the shop like tiny, shimmering spies. You squint at everything. Grumbles as he opens the shutters. Too much clarity, can't trust it. You agree mostly because you don't have the energy to argue. Sim wanders in late with twigs in his hair and a goose feather stuck to his tunic. He says nothing, you say nothing. There is a quiet mutual agreement that today will be low in ambition. He, however, has other plans. We're making patterns, he declares. You've grown in eternally. Patins, wooden overshoes meant to lift the wearer above mud, manure, and the general unpleasantness of walking through medieval town streets. They're noisy, clunky, and deeply unpopular among the impatient. Fashionable again, says, the bishop tripped in the square last week. Blamed the cobbles, wants height. You nod, of course, when in doubt, blame infrastructure. A historical fact, patins were essential footwear attachments during the wetter months. They came in wood, sometimes reinforced with iron, and were strapped beneath regular shoes. a kind of medieval platform sandal. They also made a distinct clack sound on stone floors, making subtle entrances basically impossible. Your task: carve and strap. The wood is tough old oak cured in the shop's attic. You saw and sand, shave and smooth until the boards resemble a flattened slice of canoe. Then come the leather straps, stiff at first, but they'll soften with time. Everything does. Sim tries one on, takes 2 steps, and immediately falls over. Doesn't laugh, but his eyebrow twitches with glee. You line the finished patterns along the bench. They look like someone tried to invent snowshoes after reading only the first paragraph of the instructions. He taps one with his awl. They'll keep him out of the muck, at least until he steps in something more spiritual. A cultural tidbit of the day. Some clergy believed patens should be worn to elevate themselves above worldly filth, especially when entering sacred spaces. This included mud, gossip, and occasionally their own egos. You spend the rest of the morning sanding edges and avoiding splinters. Ever the artisan insists that every pair be as humble as the ground they rise from. By midday, your arms ache, your eyes are full of dust, and your lungs smell like timber and regret. You eat lunch by the fountain. Bread, cheese, and a single wrinkled apple that tastes like it once dreamed of being fresh. Sim tells a long story about a chicken that cursed at him in Latin. You believe half of it, which is more than usual. A traveling minstrel passes through the square playing a lute with 3 strings and a grin like he knows exactly how average he is. Children follow him, clapping offbeat. A dog joins in. The music is terrible and joyful. You return to the shop with a slightly lighter heart and a splinter in your thumb the size of a moral lesson. The patens are drying by the hearth, stacked like crooked plates. Nods once, a rare approval. While you sit, stretch your back, and hum. Though the floor creaks in response. Well, that night you dream of shoes again. But this time they're walking without people. Marching really single file down the alley past the chapel over the bridge into the woods. Dozens of them, all sizes, all styles. Some with bells, some with holes, some still warm from the day's wear. You watch from your window, half curious, half concerned. You wake slowly, unsure if the sound of footsteps is still in your head or lingering in the boards beneath you. At the shop, it's a quiet day. A gentle hush settles over everything as if even the town is taking a deep breath. Doesn't speak for a full hour, which may be a personal record. You're restitching an old pair of boots. The leather is cracked, the sole's nearly gone, but there's history here. Creases from nailing, burns near the toe, mismatched laces tied in a rush. While you ask, do shoes remember? He stops, looks at you. Of course, he says. That's why they fall apart when someone else wears them. While you nod, it makes a strange sort of sense. A historical fact. In certain parts of medieval Europe, it was considered bad luck to wear the shoes of the dead. Many believed the spirit of the original wearer still lingered, especially if the shoes were well loved. Some were buried with their owners. Others were hung on walls as a kind of memorial. Still others were burned just in case. And today you're also fixing shoes for a wedding. The bride's boots are pale, dyed with crushed petals, lightly waxed, barely worn. The groom's are sturdier, stitched like a promise. You don't know them, but you feel oddly proud of their footwear. The Sim sews in silence beside you, tongue sticking out slightly as he concentrates. Works the leather in long strokes, slow and precise, like carving a path into something stubborn. You pause and sniff the air. Jai shakes his head, rose oil wedding boots. They deserve to smell like hope. Your obscure tidbit for the day. In a few villages in the Low Countries, it was tradition to scent wedding shoes with rose or sage, believing it would carry the marriage kindly through the seasons. If the scent faded before the first snow, it was considered a warning. If it lingered, good fortune. Historians still debate whether this was folk magic, proto-perfume marketing, or simply a nice way to avoid foot odor during formal dancing. You line the boots together on the bench. They look ready. Anxious maybe, but ready. Nods, tomorrow they'll walk a new paths. You ask, and after... he shrugs, mud, joy, children, regret, hopefully in that orders. Evening comes slowly. You sweep the shavings. Sim lights the lantern, hums his usual tune. The boots stay on the bench, side by side. And when the shop door finally creaks shut behind you, you look back once. Just to make sure they haven't moved. The wedding day arrives with soft bells and soft mud. A light drizzle falls, just enough to shine the cobblestones without soaking them. The town looks like someone brushed it in watercolor and then left it in a half-closed book. The chapel's bell rings twice, early enough to mean something important, but not urgent enough to ruin your porridge. You carry the boots to the bride yourself. And hands them off with a whisper, something between a blessing and a complaint about shoelaces. You don't ask what he said. You just hold the wrapped pair close as you make your way up the winding road toward the chapel, your boots echoing slightly on the damp stone. She's waiting just outside, beneath an awning of sagging cloth and nervous relatives. Her dress is wool, pale and hand-stitched, with tiny blue flowers embroidered near the hem forget-me-nots. Though the irony is that no one in the village is likely to forget anyone. You kneel to help her into the boots. They slip on gently, no tugging, no twisting, a good omen. She smiles down at you with misty eyes and crooked teeth. They feel ready. You nod, they are. A historical fact. In some regions of medieval Europe, a bride's shoes were thought to determine the direction of her future marriage. If they slipped on easily, the marriage would be peaceful. If they stuck or needed tools, the union would require effort. Some even soaked the bride's feet in the night before to soften the outcome. As she turns to walk into the chapel, her footsteps are nearly silent. Had used his softest leather, the kind so pliant it nearly melts into the shape of a person. He always saved it for moments like this. Quiet ones, tender ones, the rare days when shoes weren't armor but offerings. Back at the shop, you arrive to find Sim asleep on a pile of unfinished heels. It's not there. That's rare. His tools are still warm, his all placed carefully across the last he was working on. You sit at your bench, suddenly aware of the silence. Not the kind that happens when people stop talking, but the kind that hums in the bones of old buildings. Now the shop, like the shoes, knows when something is missing. While you wait, the fire cracks once. Now then you hear it, footsteps. The slow, careful, deliberate, enters carrying a bundle of cloth that smells faintly of sage and cedar. You recognize the shape instantly, a pair of boots, but not new ones, these are old. Worn, in the way only decades can achieve. He places them on the bench without a word. You look at him. For mending, you ask. He nods, then adds, they've seen too much to be discarded. You take them gently. The soles are nearly smooth, but the stitching holds strong. You recognize his hand in every line. He must made these long ago, before the silver in his beard, before you were old enough to understand why shoes matter. As you begin cleaning them, you notice something tucked inside one boot. A thin piece of folded parchment, yellowed and creased like a secret. You glance at him. Read it, he says, settling into his chair like gravity has doubled. You open the parchment. It's a sketch, rough, ink-faded but clear. A young woman in a long cloak, barefoot, carrying a pair of boots in her hands as if they were too sacred to wear. She wouldn't put them on, he says softly. Said they were too beautiful, said walking in them would ruin the gift. You sit in silence, let the story settle. A cultural tidbit. In some towns, shoes given as gifts were never worn, kept instead on mantles or tucked into trunks as tokens of love, protection, or remembrance. Especially if the shoemaker had put his own heart into the stitching. Historians still debate whether this tradition stemmed from symbolic thinking or practical reverence. Probably both. He leans back and closes his eyes. Sometimes you make a pair not to be worn but to be remembered. You nod, then you polish the boots, not to restore them, but to honor them. To let them know they're still part of the world. Later that afternoon, the rain begins again, but it's different now. Softer. A drizzle that feels like someone whispering down your neck. Retires early, leaving the shop in your hands. It's a quiet honor, like being asked to hold someone's breath for a moment while they rest. You light the lamp slowly. Its glow spreads across the workbench, catching on the curves of old tools and the glint of tiny nails. The whole shop feels warm and faintly alive, like it's waiting for something. You decide to start a new pair, not because anyone asked. Not because there's an order, just because. The leather is thick, freshly tanned, with a grain like gentle waves. You lay it out, smooth it once, then begin cutting. The blade moves with a rhythm you don't even think about anymore. You don't hum, not yet, you listen first. Onto the creak of the chair, the rain outside, the gentle hiss of the fire. Then slowly the tune comes, Soft at first, almost accidental, just a few notes shaped like breath, then more, the old melody. Melody, your melody now too. You stitch in silence, except for that low, repetitive hum that keeps your fingers steady. It's not for the leather, not really, it's for you. A historical fact. Some shoemakers passed down their trade through oral tradition, not just instructions, but actual chants, rhymes, and work songs. These melodies weren't written, only remembered. Many are now lost, except for fragments written in the margins of old apprentice ledgers. You hum one of those fragments now heel to toe, and toe to heel, stitch the dream you want to feel. Though the shoes begin to take shape, not flashy, not perfect, but honest. The rain taps on the windows like an old friend. Outside, the street is empty but not lonely. The world is walking somewhere else tonight, but the shop is still. And when you finally stop, stretch your arms and look at the unfinished pair, something quiet fills the room. Not pride exactly. Just rightness. Like you've joined something older than yourself. You clean your tools, cover the leather, and dim the lamp. Though the shop exhales, you do too. As outside, the rain keeps humming. And inside, the shoes listen. Morning does not arrive with fanfares. It tiptoes in, smudging away the dark, like a half-asleep painter brushing light into a forgotten corner of the sky. The fire in the hearth has gone cold, but it left behind a memory of warmth in the ashes. You stir gently under your blanket, unsure where the dream ended and the day began. You wake to the smell of boiled grain and beeswax. The shop creaks softly, as if it has something to say but doesn't want to interrupt. Is already up, sharpening a blade. Not out of necessity, you think it's already sharp, but because it's what he does when words feel too loud. The whetstone sings a rhythm, slow and steady, a kind of metal lullaby. You nod at him in greeting. He nods back, still sharpening. The sim is sweeping, vigorously, the kind of sweeping that suggests either penitence or poorly disguised fury. You don't ask which. Though today assigns you a strange task. You're going to measure the cobbler's walls. You blink for us. He waves vaguely for remembering. You know better than to question it. So you take a length of twine, a bit of chalk, and begin at the back of the shop, where the wall meets the floor in an uneven line of plaster and size. There are markings here already. Old pencil lines, faint names, bits of poetry scratched in fingernail script. Near the corner you find a date. Written upside down, 1327, below it, heel broke, spirit didn't. You smile. And now behind you grunts in approval. Old master wrote that. He stitched through 2 plagues and a fire. You look at him, what happened to him? Shrugs, retired, grew roses, died of too much wine and not enough sleep. Ideal, really. You nod and the walls. He gestures with a calloused hand. Each apprentice leaves a mark, some leave shoes, some leave stories. You pick up a small knife and carve your initials low and to the left. beside a knot in the wood that looks vaguely like a sleeping fox. Then you add something else, a line of the cobbler's chant you've been humming for weeks. Quiet looping full of intent. Our souls remember, so do we. A historical fact, in several medieval guild workshops, especially among stonemasons, weavers, and shoemakers, it was common to inscribe initials or symbols on the workspace. These weren't for vanity. They were records, signatures of the unseen, a way to mark the rhythm of learning year by quiet year. Later that morning, a customer arrives with a curious request. He's a tall man with a wide hat and the kind of beard that says, "I have opinions about weather." His boots are enormous, worn through at the toe, but he doesn't want them repaired. "I need dancing shoes," he says. "The squints, you don't seem the type." Though the man grins, that's the point. He leans on the counter. "I'm retiring from soldiering, want to go out dancing, something foolish, something soft." Studies his feet like they're a riddle, then nods. You measure, scribble notes, and pick the softest hide in the shop. Deer leather. Pale, supple, the kind that almost whispers when you move it. You begin shaping it that afternoons. No hammering, no glue, just thread, needle, and breaths. And all the while you hum. Not loudly, not even consciously, just enough to soften the air. The dancing shoes are finished by dusk. You lay them out on the bench, modest, sleek, stitched like a secret. There's no ornament, no shine, just a quiet confidence. They look like they belong to someone who once fought, then chose peace. The man returns at twilight. He picks up the shoes, turns them in his hands. He doesn't speak at first. Then, very softly, they look like they could forgive. You nod, they do. He pays in coin and a carved button with a bird on it, says it's lucky, you take it. It feels right. As he leaves, he hums the cobbler's melody. You didn't teach it to him. He must heard it through the walls, or perhaps the shoes themselves remembered and passed it along. Watches from the doorway. You did good, he says, they'll outlive the dance. You turn to him, do shoes really carry the person, even after they've gone? Looks out into the fading light. They carry the direction, he says. The choice, you wear that into them, and when they're passed on, the choice stays. A cultural tidbit, some rural communities believed passing down shoes could pass on strength or curses depending on the intent of the last wearer. A father's boots to a son meant guidance. A trader's shoes were often burned. In some cases, shoes were buried under doorways for protection. Historians still debate whether this was spiritual belief or an early form of doormat. That evening, you clean the benches while Sim experiments with dye and somehow turns both his hands purple. He insists it's a noble accident. You decline to comment. You sit by the window, carving the dancing shoes into your memory. The way the toe curled ever so slightly upward. The stitches that looked like breath held still. You hum again, joins in, not in harmony. He never sings on key, but in rhythms. Though the two of you finish the day in silence, shared and simple. Outside, the bells ring once, and inside the shop, the shoes listen. Because that's what they've always done. Even when no one's walking. Even when the day is done. Even now. The next morning brings frost. Not a harsh one, no bitter wind, no shattered puddles. Just a quiet shimmer like the world exhaled in its sleep and forgot to take the warmth back in. You step outside and the cobbles glint like old coins thinly glazed in light. Your breath clouds in the air as you tug your cloak. The shop door sticks slightly in the cold. You lean into it with your shoulder and it gives, groaning like an elder woken from a nap. Inside, everything is still. The hearth has not yet been lit. The glue pot is cold. The awls are lined neatly on the bench like monks at early prayers. It arrives a few minutes later with a bundle of firewood and a scowl aimed directly at winter itself. He sets the logs down, muttering, "Glue hates frost. So do I." The Sim stumbles in next, wrapped in 3 layers and somehow still shivering. He sits near the hearth and glares at the fire until it decides to cooperate. Today is a repair day. The pile is large. Shoes brought in by farmers, traders, weavers. Some are barely holding together, stitched and restitched until they resemble arguments more than footwear. Others are surprisingly whole, just tired. You pick up a pair of boots that still smell faintly of lavender and sheep. The sole is coming loose, but the upper is intact, scuffed, worn but strong. Inside, you find a coin stitched beneath the heel. You raise an eyebrow. Nods without looking up. For luck, some people walk on their wishes. A historical fact. In several regions of medieval Europe, it was common to place a coin, a scrap of parchment, or even a small charm under the insole when crafting or repairing shoes. The practice was meant to bring prosperity, ward off evil, or simply ensure safe travels. Many shoes discovered in old buildings and burial sites still contain these little tucked-away tokens. You remove the coin gently. It's old, worn smooth from years of unspoken prayers. You set it aside respectfully before beginning the repair. The morning passes in quiet, steady rhythms. Cut, bind, stitch, pause. Each repair is a small conversation. You read the wear patterns, the tears, the odd choices in lacing. You wonder where these shoes have been, who danced in them, knelt in them, ran from things in them. While you reach a pair of children's boots next. Small, torn near the toe. The leather is soft, not from quality, but from years of being passed down. 4 generations by the look of it. Names have been carved into the inside flap, one below the next, like a family tree made of feet. You run your thumb over the letters. They're faint but still legible. "I'll restitch the flap," you say softly. Glances over, then nods. "Don't hide the names." You don't. Instead, you stitch around them, outlining each with gentle thread. A frame, not a cover, a tribute. An obscure tidbit. In certain alpine villages, it was tradition to write the name of each child who wore a pair of boots inside the upper cuff. If a child passed away, their name was underlined in blue thread. The boots were never thrown out, only passed on to smaller feet or hung near the door as a kind of protective charm. Historians still debate whether this was mourning or memory, or both. By noon, the fire is crackling, the glue is warm, and your fingers are stained with dye and satisfaction. Paul places a finished pair on the drying rack and exhales. They're never just shoes. You nod, eyes fixed on the tiny boots still in your lap. No, you say, they're a way of remembering where you've been and who walked beside you. Afternoon arrives with the faint sound of drums. Not war drums, not even particularly good drums. More like someone practicing percussion on a turnip. But they mean something, the harvest play is starting. You have forgotten this. Each autumn, the townspeople gather in the square to reenact some vaguely remembered tale involving a fox, a saint, and a particularly angry loaf of bread. The script changes yearly. The costumes do not. Stands abruptly, we're going. While you stare at him, you hate public events. I hate shoes with no arch support more, he mutters, strapping on a pair of sturdy walking boots. Which is what half that cast will be wearing unless we intervene. Zasim perks up, we're going to heckle. No, says, grabbing his awl like a theater critic wielding a quill. We're going to offer unsolicited advice. You march to the square as a unit of 3, boots hitting stone in sync like a well-rehearsed trio of judgment. The stage is made of borrowed crates and optimism. The actors are mostly local farmers and children in oversized tunics. One woman plays 3 roles, differentiated only by varying degrees of eyebrow drama. You sit quietly on a bench beneath the awning of the tavern, sipping lukewarm cider. Critiques the footwear under his breaths. Loose laces, poor heel shaping. That boy's boots are on the wrong feet. Zasim cheers when the loaf of bread delivers its lines, shouted bravely by a child with jam on his nose. The fox chases the saint. The saint throws a sandal in self-defense. The crowd laughs. No one remembers if this is how the original story goes, but no one cares. You find yourself smiling, truly smiling. There's something beautiful about it, not the performance but the effort, the shared silliness. The knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. As after the show, people scatter through the square buying cider and sugared nuts. A man offers to trade you a turnip with the face of a king for one of your boots. You decline gently. A girl tugs your sleeve. You make shoes. So you nod. She pulls off one of hers, a tiny soft slipper, the kind worn only on festivals, and shows you a tear near the seam. You take it in both hands. I can fix this, you say, but I'll need to hum to it. So she grins, I knew you'd say that. Back at the shop that evening, you sit near the hearth with the slipper in your lap. You hum softly, slowly. Not the cobbler's chant this time, something new, something smaller. A lullaby for leather, a bedtime story for souls. A historical fact. In some small guilds, especially in northern villages, cobblers made festival slippers for children during seasonal fairs. These slippers were not meant to last. They were symbolic, meant to be worn once, danced in, and kept in trunks like pressed flowers. Some believed the joy left in them would rub off on the next pair. You finish the stitch with care, brush the edge with warm wax, and tie a tiny blue thread around the ankle just because. It says nothing but places a mug of cider beside you and watches the fire. Sim hums absently from the corner, reshaping a soul that probably didn't ask to be reshaped. And as the fire burns lower, the shop fills with the quiet kind of peace that only comes after shared work and shared laughter. As outside, the square is empty again. The fox and the bread are resting somewhere, tired and victorious. And inside, the shoes are sleeping too. And the floor, ever so softly, hums back. The next morning arrives as a whisper. No rain, no bells, no shouting in the alley about onions, just the gentle light of a sun that took its time. A kind of golden apology for yesterday's frost. You stretch slowly like bread dough that hasn't yet decided what shape to become. Your arms ache in the way they do after good work. Not painful, just full. The streets are hushed, not empty, just thoughtful. You pass the fountain and it's still running gently like it's trying not to disturb the birds. A woman sells herbs from a basket, arranging them with reverence. Two children play with a stick and a hoop, giggling so quietly it feels like a secret. At the shop is wiping his bench. That's always a sign. He only cleans when something's on his mind. You wait. He doesn't speak, just keeps wiping. Circular, slow, methodical. Eventually, he mutters, "We're taking a walk today." You blink now. Now, he says and nods at Sim. You hold the shop. Sim salutes with a hammer. You and head out, walking side by side, your boots in sync. You don't ask where you're going, it's not about that. You walk past the baker, past the chapel, past the edge of the town where the road curves away like it's tired of being watched. The hills roll out before you, dotted with sheep, crows, and one confused goat tied to a stump. Eventually stops near a small wooden bench on a rise. It overlooks a valley, quiet and green. He sits with the kind of sigh that belongs to memories. This, he says, was where I decided to be a shoemaker. You sit beside him. The wind is cool and smells faintly of moss and distant bread. I was supposed to be a miller, he continues. My father was and his father, but the wheel never spoke to me, the shoes did. You listen, that's all he needs. I came here with a pair I'd tried to make myself. Awful things, twisted, uneven, but I liked them because they were mine. He pauses. I buried them here, under this bench. You glance down. Not deep, he says, didn't have a shovel. You both laugh, soft and surprised. A historical fact. It was not uncommon for apprentices to ceremonially bury their first failed attempt at a craft, especially among artisans like carpenters, stonemasons, and yes, cobblers. It was a way of releasing imperfection and beginning anew, like a quiet funeral for mistakes. Ka closes his eyes for a moment. "Oh, they're probably dust now," he says. You nod, still here though. He hums not the usual chant, a different one. Lower, slower, it sounds like a farewell or maybe a thank you. You sit in silence for a while. A bird lands on the bench's edge, then leaves unimpressed. Eventually stands, time to go back. You walk the long way through the orchard path. The leaves above you form a canopy of green gold light. The dirt beneath your boots is soft and generous. He walks a little slower than usual. You don't point it out. Back at the shop, the air is warm and full of life. Sim has somehow burned glue and possibly part of his tunic. He's apologizing to a pair of boots like they're sentient and offended. You pick up a pair waiting on the bench, a widow's shoes. Had taken the order himself, simple leather, thick soles, designed for walking and waiting. They're half done. You sit and begin stitching, humming softly. The afternoon light spills through the warped windows in stripes. The dust dances in it slowly as if it's listening. As you stitch, you notice something odd. A mark inside the heel, pressed into the leather, almost like a seal. You hold it to the light. It's a sun with a small crescent inside. The line's over. "A old maker's mark," he says, "from my teacher." You turn the shoe in your hands. Did he teach you everything? Shakes his head. He taught me to listen. To shoes. To people, he says, shoes are just the translation. An obscure tidbit, shoemakers in some regions used personalized marks stamped into the inside of the heel or sole, not just for brand recognition but as symbols of intention. A sun might mean protection. A spiral, journey, a tree, family. These were secret marks hidden from the wearer but believed to carry subtle influence. You continue stitching. Each pass of the needle feels like pulling thread through time. The widow's shoes are quiet, measured, you don't embellish, you don't rush. When they're done, you lay them side by side. Places a slip of dried lavender inside each one, not for scent, for steadiness. She walks every day to the chapel, he says, even in the rain. You nod, she's carrying something. He replies, a weight, and now something to carry her. The rest of the evening passes in that hush that follows right work. You finish repairs, you oil tools. Sim writes his name into a plank on the back wall beside your initials. He spells it wrong, you let him. Sits by the hearth polishing a pair of shoes that no one has ordered. Not yet. Why make them if no one's asked? You ask. He smiles because someone will. You close the shutters one by one. Outside, the town settles into its blanket of fog and evening bread. Inside, the cobbler's shop breathes once. then stills. And as you step out into the night, boots warm from use, you feel it again. The way the soles of your feet remember the path, even when your mind forgets. Not because of the road, but because of the shoes. Some days the shop feels like a church. Not because anyone's praying, at least not out loud, but because everything inside seems to know its role. The silence is full, not empty. The tools rest exactly where they should. Even the dust moves slowly, reverently through the golden stripes of morning light. Today is a slow day. Orders are caught up. Repairs are finished. No one has burst in shouting about miracles or blisters. So you sharpen blades. You rub beeswax into the window frame. You sweep corners you've never seen without cobwebs. And then hands you something strange, a box. It's wooden, carved, and heavier than it looks. He opens it slowly as if it's not just old, but alive. Inside, stacked neatly and tied with bits of red thread, are dozens of paper patterns. Shoe patterns. Toe curves, heel tapers, arch cuts. Some are torn, some have notes in handwriting you don't recognize. One is labeled simply, "For dancing at dawn." While you look at him, he says nothing. While you understand, he wants them preserved, redrawn onto fresh parchment. You lay them out across the long table, touching each one as though it were a letter from someone long gone. The paper is brittle, ink faded. A few are written in Latin, one in something that might be poetry or madness. You begin the work in silence, tracing, adjusting, breathing in the ink and dust of people you'll never meet. A historical fact, medieval cobblers didn't always use standardized patterns. Many crafted custom templates for each client and kept them for years, even decades, reusing and adjusting as needed. Some master cobblers passed these patterns down, their curves and cuts forming a kind of secret family language. One pattern is particularly delicate, an almost impossibly slim design, barely there. The leather it was made for must been thinner than dreams. Leans over, slippers for a nun, she didn't want to make noise when she walked. You pause, did they work? He shrugs, no one ever caught her sneaking bread from the kitchens. You smile, then keep tracing. Each line you copy feels like threading a needle through someone else's memory. You wonder about the people behind each cut, how they walked, where they danced, whom they chased or waited for. Some patterns include tiny imperfections, one foot slightly longer than the other, a slight bulge for a healed injury. You copy those too, not out of error, out of respect. You're halfway through when Sim comes in holding a broken stirrup and a look of defeat. This is leather, kind of right. Groans, that's you've brought shame to the floor. You laugh, Sim doesn't. He's stuck trying to explain why he traded 2 eggs for a challenge. You promise to help later, for now the box waits. You finish by the sunset. The patterns are tied with new thread blues this time. holds the bundle for a long moment before placing it in the cabinet near the wall, where the old candle stubs live. "Oh, you did them no justice," he says. "Oh, you don't reply. Oh, you don't need to." Though that evening tells a story. Not all at once, not with any great preamble. Just quietly as the last shoe is waxed and the shutters are drawn. There was a woman once, he says, who walked to the sea. You glance up. She walked for 10 days in the same boots, didn't stop not once. You wait. Her son had been taken press-ganged into a ship. She followed the stories, from village to dock, from soldier to sailor, always asking, always walking. He pauses, polishing the leather with slow circles. When she found him, they wouldn't let her see him. Too late, they said. The ship was already leaving. So she threw her boots onto the deck and shouted, "At least walk home in something that remembers me." You exhale. What happened to her, you ask? He shrugs. She walked home barefoot, never asked for another pair. A historical fact, there are accounts, fragmented, half-confirmed, of mothers walking days, even weeks, to track down children who had been conscripted, especially during early naval drafts. Some returned with their sons. Others left behind tokens, scarves, shoes, even bread. A few left nothing but footprints. You sit in that story for a long time. Then you ask, have you ever made a pair for someone who didn't come back? Nods. Oh yes. The answer is enough, you don't press. But you do begin writing something quietly in the little ledger near the windowsill. Not orders, not names, just stories, fragments, what the shoes said, where they went, who cried when they left. Zasim joins you, peering over your shoulder. Are you starting a book? You shrug, a memory. He nods, then leans against the window and hums to himself. As outside, the fog is curling again, not heavy, just enough to soften the corners of the world. And inside, the shop glows with lamplight and ash warmth. The leather smells sweet tonight, like it's dreaming of fields. You look down at your own boots. Not fancy, not perfect. But every step you've taken has shaped them. And tomorrow they'll shape a little more. Because this is what shoes do. They walk you forward, even when you're standing still. The morning feels older than usual. You can't explain it, but everything seems to move slower. The sunlight filters in like a memory, not a force. The birds don't chirp, they murmur. Even the bread from the baker tastes contemplative, like it's unsure whether it wants to be breakfast or a poem. Is already in the shop, standing by the door, not working. Just watching the street, the air, something. An anniversary, he says softly. You pause. Love of what it is. He taps the wall of this. The shop. You look around, suddenly more aware of the floorboards, the soot stains in the corner, the little scratch marks near the bench from tools dropped in a hurry. How long, you ask? Thinks for a second, 38 years. Oh, you blink, you've been here 38 years. Oh, he chuckles, the shop been here 38 years. I've only been here 37 and some change. You don't ask who opened it before him. He doesn't say. Some silences are better left with their shoes on. To mark the day, he pulls something from a cupboard you've never seen opened. A small chest wrapped in a scarf. Inside, resting on a folded scrap of velvet, is the first pair of shoes he ever made in this shop. Oh, they are crooked. Beautifully, unapologetically crooked. The stitching is uneven, the heel too high on one, the toe oddly turned, but they're full of intention. They look like they were made by someone who believed. Oh, he lifts one gently. I wore these to market once. A man paid me a compliment and then immediately offered to fix them for free. Oh, you laugh. And I said no, he adds, because even mistakes have to walk their own paths. A historical fact. In medieval guilds, it was common for apprentices and to keep their first piece of real work, whether it was a chair, a blade, a carved spoon, or a pair of shoes. It served as a reminder of their beginnings, their flaws, and the bravery it takes to start at all. Now you hold one of the shoes in your hand. It's lighter than you expected, but it feels heavy with memory. Now doesn't polish them, doesn't adjust, just puts them back gently and closes the lid. Oh, let them be what they were, he says, that's enough. Later, you find yourself walking the shop floor slower. Your eyes notice things differently. The slight dip near the workbench where always stands, the faded line of sunburned wood where boots were dried too long last summer, the cracked tile that Sim once tried to glue back with porridge. You take a piece of charcoal and, without telling anyone, draw a tiny shoe in the corner of the back wall. Not a signature, a footprint. Oh, you don't need to explain it. Oh, it just feels right. That afternoon, a traveler arrives. Not the dramatic kind. No cloaks, no swords, no mysterious glances. Just a man with quiet eyes, a worn satchel, and boots that have clearly forgotten what rest feels like. He stands in the doorway for a long while, then finally steps in, his boots creaking with exhaustion. Lo looks up. Oh, you need a chair, he says. The man nods. Sim brings one, you bring water, no one rushes. The man drinks slowly, wipes his mouth, and finally speaks. I've walked from the North Coast. You glance at his boots again, they're more patch than shoe now. The left one's toe is barely stitched. The sole is cracked in half and curling like a dying leaf. I'm not staying, he says, as if anticipating a question. But I want to leave these. He unlaces the boots, sets them on the bench, and leans back. They got me this far, they deserve to rest. You and Sim exchange a look. Nods very slightly, then gestures for you to inspect them. You pick one up carefully. It smells of salt and pine and old roads. The stitching is unfamiliar, tight, looped like embroidery. The leather has worn into a smooth polish, not from care but from miles. And inside the tongue of the boot, you find a name stitched in blue thread. Yours, you ask. The man nods, made them myself long ago. As I steps forward, you want a new pair. The man shakes his head. No, I want to walk barefoot for a while, let the earth speak louder. You nod, it makes perfect sense in the quiet language of this shop. I picks up the boots, runs a hand along the heel. I'm made well, he murmurs. They did what I asked, the man replies. He stands, presses a few coins into your palm, and turns to go. Will you ever come back, you ask. He shrugs not unkindly, if the road bends that way. And then he's gone barefoot steady, his footprints dampening the path as he disappears into the late day light. You hold the boots like a goodbye. A cultural tidbit. In certain regions, it was believed that shoes carried a portion of your journey like a memory sponge. Travelers would sometimes leave their boots in towns where they found peace as a form of offering or closure. Some towns kept them in halls or hung them near inns, believing they brought protection to future guests. Places boots high on a shelf, above the window facing the west road. Let them see the next traveler coming, he says. You add a little card beneath them. These carried a quiet man through a loud world. That evening, you patch a boot heel without needing to think. Your hands have learned the work now. Your fingers carry their own memories. Zosim sings a new verse to the cobbler's chant. It's a little off-key, but it fits. You close the shutters gently, not because you need to, but because the shop feels full. Full of boots, full of breath, full of the kinds of things that shoes remember. Even when the feet are gone, even when the world moves on, even then. So some days begin not with sound, but with scent. Today it's beeswax and burnt flour. You wake to it gently clinging to your nose. Someone probably tried to make bread. Again, there will be ash in the fireplace and flour in places flour doesn't belong. The shop feels warm today. Not in temperature, but in tone. Something in the air is kinder. Maybe it's the sun through the windows laying soft gold across the tools. Maybe it's the shoes on the drying rack, 3 pairs, each one quietly proud of its own existence. Or maybe it's just that nothing is broken. Arrives humming, which is rare. It's not the cobbler's chant today, it's something older, deeper in the chest. A tune you don't recognize, but your bones seem to. Busy, you ask. He shakes his head. No orders today. None. None that matters. You pause, so what do we do? He smiles. We make something without being asked. You blink. Why? Because one day someone will knight it, and when they do, it'll already be here. It's historical fact, in many medieval trades, especially among craftsmen who dealt with necessity rather than luxury, it was customary to make spare work. Not for profit, not for sale, just in case. A pair of shoes for a widow who lost everything. a cradle for a baby not yet born, a coffin for a friend who hadn't fallen ill yet. Preparedness was not pessimism. It was kindness made visible. Opens the cupboard beneath the workbench. Inside are 4 bundles of leather, fine, dark. He sets them on the table. Well, we'll each make one, he says. No size, no customer, just make it well. Zasim looks panicked. How do I know what to make? Oh, you don't, replies. You listen to the leather. And so you begin. There's no rush, no measurements, no deadline. You cut the hide by feel, shape the sole as though tracing someone's future. The toe turns softly inward like a gesture of modesty. You stitch slower than usual, not from fatigue but from intention. It feels like sculpting a breath. Zasim starts and stops 3 times, muttering curses at his boot like it insulted his mother. Eventually, he finds a rhythm. You hear him humming not the shop's chant but his own tune, full of little stumbles and odd pauses. Works in silence, save for the steady rasp of his blade and the occasional sniff, which you now know means either approval or indigestion. By late afternoon, the shoes are done. 3 pairs, all different, all perfect in their own crooked way. You line them on the shelf without labels. They don't belong to anyone yet. But they will. Somewhere, someone is walking toward them. Though they just don't know it yet. Evening brings a letter. Not common in your village. Most things are said out loud or shouted across fences or passed along in the folds of bread and bundles of eggs. But this one arrives folded in clean parchment, sealed with a wax stamp in the shape of a lily. You've never seen that before. Opens it with the tip of his awl, then reads in silence. He reads it twice. Then he hands it to you. The handwriting is elegant, measured, the words unfamiliar, almost courtly. To the shoemaker of Old Hollow Lanes. I have heard through unlikely winds that your shop hums. That your boots remember. That you stitch not just leather but time. My daughter is to be married. She cannot walk. I ask humbly for a pair that might carry her all the same. Not on her feet but in her heart. If such shoes exist, I will send for them. If not, I will understand. This is our. Though the letter has no return address, no town, just initials and a sense that it came from somewhere past the edge of maps. Zasim whistles, well, that's poetic. Folds the letter gently, we make the shoes. But she can't walk, you ask. He nods, then the shoes will do the walking for her. You pause, trying to imagine what that means. He walks to the drawer beneath the stair and pulls out a leather bundle. Old, almost black, but soft like river stones smoothed by centuries. This was from the stag that fell in the frost winter, he says. We've saved it for something that matters. You hold it in your hands, it's warm somehow, as if it's been waiting. And so you begin. You do not measure, you do not trace, you shape. You shape with the kind of care you would use to build wings. Each cut is light, each curve is soft. You line the inside with brushed felt, cloud-colored, quiet. You stitch in silk for once because thread this fine doesn't shout, it whispers. As at the heel you add a small circle of suede, not needed, just kind. And at the very end, when both shoes are laced and quiet and complete, you reach into your apron pocket and pull out the coin from weeks ago. The one that was stitched into the heel of a repaired boot. The lucky coin. You press it gently into the sole, beneath the lining, hidden but there. Doesn't speak, just nods. An obscure tidbit. In some noble households, shoes were made for ceremonial use only, never worn. These were displayed at weddings, laid beside the bed, or hung above the fireplace as blessings for fertility, fortune, or peace. The belief was simple. If you cannot walk into joy, joy should walk into you. You wrap the shoes in the finest cloth you have. Not silk, not velvet, just clean linen. White, soft, honest. You place them in a wooden box, padded with wool. And you hum. No, not the chant, not Sim's tune. A new one. The one just for her. That night, as you lock the shop, you look up and see a single star blinking behind the chimney smoke. You whisper into the air, they're ready. No one answers. But somewhere far from your little cobbled lane, a bride smiles without knowing why. And somewhere inside a carved wooden box, a pair of shoes waits patiently to carry someone exactly where they were always meant to go. The next morning, the box is gone. Not stolen, not taken, just gone like dew from a window, says nothing when he notices. He just stands a moment in the doorway, looking out toward the hills as if expecting to see a faint figure walking away with grace. Did you deliver it? You ask softly. He shakes his head, didn't have to. You want to ask what that means. But the way the sunlight lands on the empty shelf where the box once was makes you stay silent. And instead, you set about the morning chores. The tools are all where they should be. The floor has that comforting smell of old ash and pine wax. You brew the glue early, humming without meaning to. Sim arrives late and flour-covered again. He claims he fought a bag of rye flour and lost. Reads a folded page in the corner, eyebrows furrowed as if it might resist comprehension. Another letter, you ask. He nods, a thank you note from someone we never met. Sim perks up, was it signed with initials? No, replies, with a drawing, a pair of empty shoes on a windowsill. You take that in slowly. Somewhere someone placed those shoes just so. Not worn, not hidden, just waiting in light. A historical fact. In various parts of Europe, it was believed that leaving shoes on a windowsill invited blessings, or returned a blessing already received. The position of the shoes facing in, facing out, crossed apart sometimes carried symbolic meaning, return, memory, protection, or transition. These rituals were seldom written down, passed instead through gestures and glances. Now tucks the note beneath the counter. Today we mend, he says, as if to re-anchor the shop to something simpler. But the day has already shifted. You feel it in your fingers, the way the needle pulls differently. You feel it in the leather, the way it yields with just a bit more softness. The silence is heavier today, but not in a sorrowful way, more like reverence. You mend boots for a farmer, a simple patch, a frayed sole. You a pair of clogs for the priest's cousin, who insists her prayers are only answered when her heels click. You wax a child's sandals, smudged with jam and adventure. Each task is humble, ordinary, but something has changed. You're no longer making or mending just for wear. You're working in memories. You ask, do you think shoes remember who they were made for? He shrugs, maybe, or maybe we remember through them. Later, after Sim has left to chase down a runaway chicken that may or may not be his, speaks again, quietly. She was mine, you know. You pause who's. The one who couldn't walk, the bride, the daughter from the letters. You stop what you're doing. She passed years ago, but I never made her shoes. The world stills for a moment. Until now, you say. He nods. She always said she wanted to dance at her wedding. I told her I'd make her slippers soft enough to carry her even if her feet stayed still. You don't speak, there's nothing to say. And yet, everything has been said. The box wasn't delivered, it was released. And the shoes, they were made not to be worn, but to carry love. The next morning is windy. Not violent, just playful. Leaves tumble past the shop door like dancers with no partner. The shutters rattle. The air smells like harvest and endings. You open the windows anyway. Let the wind in. Let it carry away the dust, the ash, the words unsaid. Announces it's a day for souls. New ones. Old ones, he replies, we're pulling up the floors. You nearly drop your coffee. He means it literally. Beneath the bench, under the drying rack, behind the hearth, he pries up the wooden slats one by one, revealing the rough earth beneath. Sim yelps when he finds a spider the size of a plum. Why are we doing this, you ask? Pauses, breathing slightly harder than usual. To bury them. Bury what? He pulls out a cloth sack. Inside are shoes, dozens, maybe more, all old, all unclaimed, some half-finished, some barely begun, one pair made entirely of stitched bark. These, he says, are the forgotten. You kneel beside him, heart suddenly still. Why didn't you burn them? They deserve rest, he replies, not erasure. A historical fact, in certain cobbler traditions, discarded or unclaimed shoes were buried beneath the shop floor. This wasn't waste disposal, it was ritual, a belief that the shoes, like people, deserved peace. Some thought burying them kept bad luck away. Others believed they blessed the shop with groundedness, with memory that could never walk away. You and Sim dig slowly, reverently. Each pair placed in the soil with a gentle touch, some wrapped in cloth, some with tiny tokens tied to the laces, beads, feathers, a pressed flower. Doesn't rush. He speaks to them not loudly, just murmurs. This one waited too long, this one carried too far, this one never finished the journey. Let them rest now. By sunset the shoes are buried. You lay the floorboards back down, each one smoother now, lighter. And before the last board is set, drops in a single shoelace, braided red and white. What's that one, you whisper? He smiles, and for a moment he looks young. My first lacing came undone in the rain, nearly cost me a customer and a boot. You all laugh, a real laugh, deep, full, cleansing. The final board is nailed in. The floor is still again. But you can feel it now beneath your feet. The memory, the walking, the forgiveness. That night you don't lock the shop doors. You just close it gently. And as you step outside, the wind swirls around your boots like a blessing. Somewhere under the floor, dozens of shoes rest in silence. They're not forgotten. They're just a home. The next day begins with fog, thick, silver, and soft as sheep's wool. You wake before the sun not because you must, but because something inside you is already stirring. The world is muffled. Even the roosters sound like they're crowing through blankets. When you step into the street, you can barely see the cobbles at your feet. The whole village feels like it's been dipped in quiet. You like it. The shop is dark when you enter, but not cold. Somehow it holds warmth even before the hearth is lit, as if the shoes have learned how to keep heat from leaving. You make tea, you open the shutters halfway, letting in just enough gray light to draw the outlines of the workbench, the drying rack, the old awls stacked like sleepy soldiers. And then you notice it. A pair of boots sitting in the center of the room. You didn't place them there. It is not yet here. Sim is still likely wrestling a pillow. But the boots are there, sturdy, dark, and familiar. You step closer. They're yours. The ones you've worn every day since the first week of your apprenticeship. The ones that have walked through rain, laughter, spilled glue, heartbreak, and more mornings than you can count. But they have been mended. Perfectly. Stitched with new soles. Buffed with beeswax. And inside, resting gently, a folded piece of parchment. You open it. And every cobbler walks far before they stand still. These were your journey boots. Now make the next ones for joy. It isn't signed, but the handwriting, sharp and uneven, is unmistakably. You sit down slowly. A strange feeling swells in your chest, something between grief and pride. A goodbye that hasn't quite been said and yet already has. A historical fact. In some cobbler traditions, the master would quietly repair the apprentice's first boots when it was time for them to move on. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't gifted. It was simply done. The idea was that shoes carried the soul of the trade, and no apprentice should carry worn memories into a new life unhealed. I'll use a slip your feet into the boots. Though they fit perfectly. No rub, no pinch. As if they've forgiven you. Though that morning you don't stitch. You don't glue. You just walk. Down the path past the chapel, along the stream, past the willow that remembers everyone's secrets. Though the boots don't creak. Though they don't resist. They carry you like they've been waiting for this final walk all along. When you return is already theirs. He's sitting on the step outside the shop, mug in hand, steam rising into the mist. He doesn't say anything at first, just nods toward the bench. You sit beside him. The fog is lifting now slowly. The rooftops emerge one by one. The windows blink open like eyes waking from a dream. You read it, he asks. You nod. He doesn't smile, but his shoulders relax. I never had an apprentice like you, he says after a long pause. Because I was better, you offer. No, he says, because you listened. You let that settle. I think it's time, he adds. You blink, time for what? Points at the shop. For you to run it. You stare at him. He sips his tea. I'll still be here, he says. I'll still mutter at Nails and yell at Sim, but the shape of the shop should be yours now. You don't answer. You just look at your hands. They're no longer calloused in the same way. The blisters are gone, the cuts are fewer, but the strength remains. Your hands know the weight of leather, the rhythm of wax thread, the language of souls and silence. You breathe in. You breathe out. Then you say, I think I'd like to change the window. Grins make it yours. A obscure tidbit. When a new cobbler took over a shop in certain guild towns, they would change one small architectural detail. A window pane, a door hinge, a carving in the signboard. It was never flashy. But it was a quiet signal. Someone new is here, but the story continues. Zasim arrives soon after, yawning, holding 2 pears and a lopsided grin. Did I miss something? He asks. Yes, says, you missed the changing of the guard. Zasim drops a pear in shock. By midday, the shop hums again. The leather stretches beneath your fingers as if testing your resolve. The tools sit just a little differently in your hand. You hang a new bell on the doors. You write your name in the ledgers. You open the back window a little wider. And for the first time, the cobbler's chant is yours alone. You sing it softly, while you cut, while you shape, while you stitch. Oh, it's not a perfect. Oh, it's not supposed to be. Oh, but it's yours. And as the day rolls gently toward dusk, you realize something. No, you aren't the apprentice anymore. No, you're the shoemaker now. No, the keeper of steps. No, the hum behind the heels. No, the one who listens. And then down below the floor, where forgotten shoes rest in peace, the quiet shifts slightly. As if even they know. Though the shop is in good hands. A week passes. So then another. Not much changes, at least not from the outside. Though the sign above the door still creaks in the wind, the glue still boils. The awls still go missing only to be found in Sim's sleeves. The bells still ring when customers enter, usually just a half second after they've already announced themselves with enthusiastic coughing. But inside, something has shifted. It's in the way people speak when they walk in, just a little softer. A little more aware that the walls are listening. It's in the way you open the shop each morning, no longer just arriving but welcoming. It's in the way sits more often now with a cup in hand and no tools watching. Not judging, not instructing. Just watching. You find your rhythm quickly. There are new orders. A pair of boots for the traveling scribe, soft-soled so he doesn't wake the house when inspiration strikes at midnight. A pair of walking shoes for a woman who insists she's going to follow the spring north, barefoot if necessary. A child's slipper that must match the one she lost in a puddle the size of forever. Each task feels familiar now. Your hands don't question the leather anymore, they coax it. You take your time. You hum quietly as you work, a different tune sometimes, one you've started adding to without realizing. It winds its way into your stitches, loops through the thread like a signature. You're not just remembering's chant now. You're rewriting it. Well, one day Sim walks in and pauses mid-step. You smell that, he says. I'll use a sniff. Cedar oil, warm hide, a bit of thyme from the herb bag hung by the window. Well, what is it, you ask? He tilts his head, pieces. You smile. I didn't order that. He shrugs, too late, it's here. A historical fact. In many medieval workshops, it was believed that once a craftsperson found true rhythm in their work, when their hands moved without conscious effort, when their mind softened into breath, that piece would linger in the space itself. Some masters were said to leave behind a smell of calm, a trace of serenity that remained long after the tools were passed on. That night, after the shutters are drawn and the last pair is left to dry, you find by the hearths. He's asleep, a head tilted back, arms crossed. A faint smile under the weight of years. You don't wake him. You place a folded blanket over his knees. Then you sit nearby in your chair, the one that used to wobble but which you fixed last week with a new leg and 3 old nails. The fire cracks softly, a shoe on the rack sighs as it cools. And in the silence, you hear it. So the shop breathing. It knows it is still alive. The morning arrives not with footsteps, but with bird song. The first real one of the season, a thrush maybe, you're not sure. But it's bright and golden and feels like someone singing with their eyes closed. Zasim bursts through the door carrying a folded note. From the chapel, he announces, "You take it." It's a request for shoes for the caretaker, whose knees are tired and whose bones now groan more than the church bell. I takes one look at the note and smiles. I remember making her first pair. She told me they carried her through 4 funerals, 3 weddings, and 1 questionable sermon. You nod, let's make these just as faithful. You choose soft leather, a warm brown with just enough give to cradle tired feet. You line the soles with cork and wool and stitch the toe with a loop meant for easy pulling. You tuck a pressed violet inside each shoe before closing the lining. Sasim raises an eyebrow. She likes flowers, you say, but she says they don't last. He nods, these will. Later, you return to the bench to work on something new, something not yet ordered. Just a shape, a curve, a whisper of someone who doesn't exist yet but might walk in one day. And that's when speaks. You'll teach someone too, he says. You look up. He's not asking. Just saying what he knows. Someone will walk through that door with hands that haven't hurt yet. You'll give them the hurt, and the strength, and the rhythm. You nod slowly. Will I know when it's time? He chuckles, you'll know when they hum before they stitch. You pause, what if they're awful? He shrugs, then they're ready. You sit together in the golden hush of late afternoon. The shop glows like an old song. And then you ask quietly, do you miss making shoes? Looks down at his hands. They're still strong, still calloused, but they've quieted. No, he says, because I didn't stop. I just passed the stitching along. You understand. And so you return to your bench. You sew a little slower than usual. Not because you've forgotten, but because you want to remember everything. As every loop of thread, and every soft sigh from the leather, as every pair that came before, as every pair still to come. Now the door swings open just before dusk. Not with urgency, not with drama, just a soft creak and then stillness. As a young girl stands there, no older than 12, wearing a patched cloak and eyes too big for her face. She holds a single shoe in her hands, small, bent, torn near the heel. She doesn't speak at first. You set down your thread and kneel to her height. What happened, you ask gently. She holds the shoe up like a broken wing. It's my brother, she whispers. He left. But he said when I can walk far enough in these, I'll find him. You take the shoe. It's handmade badly. stitched with uneven thread, the sole lined with folded cloth instead of leather. But it's full of effort, full of love. Appears behind you. Oh, can we fix it, you ask? Oh, he looks at it once, then nods. We won't fix it, he says, we'll finish it. You and Sim work quietly as the girl sits nearby, watching with the kind of wonder that only children and poets understand. You reinforce the stitching, polish the seams, tuck a small charm into the lining. Oh, she doesn't ask what it is. She just smiles. You'll walk far in these, you tell her as you hand them back. She hugs the shoe to her chest. I won't stop, she says. And then she's gone. A breeze follows her out. It carries the scent of wood smoke and evening rain. Though the shop feels still again. Oh, but it's not empty. Oh, it never is. You sweep the floor one last time, though it doesn't need it. You align the tools, dim the lamp, and leave the back window open just a little for the breeze to hum through. The sits in the corner half asleep. The Sim whistles quietly while winding thread. Though you step outside. Though the village is quiet. Though the stars begin to arrive. And your boots, your second boots, the ones you made yourself, feel like home. And now, gentle listener, you sit on the step once more. The sky above the cobbler's shop has gone soft with stars. The moon hangs low, a scuffed coin in the dark. The air is cool against your face, but not cold, more like a quiet hand resting on your shoulder. You breathe it in slowly. Inside, the tools are sleeping. The scraps of leather lie curled like resting cats. The glue cools in its pot. The floor creaks softly, like it's still remembering every footstep it ever carried. And beneath it all, beneath the bench and the hearth and the hidden nails, dozens of shoes lie still. Shoes that once ran, danced, waited, carried stories that were never spoken aloud. Now they dream, they rest. You close your eyes and listen. To the wind moving gently through the shutters. To the soft, slow ticking of a clock no one ever wins. To the hum of something ancient and kind. You are no longer walking now. You are still. And the stillness holds you not like a pause, but like a cradle. Let your breath move slower now. Let your shoulders release. Let the thoughts soften at the edges like old parchment. There's nothing to do now. Nothing to make. No more souls to stitch or leather to shape. Only rest, and the soft memory of steps taken, and the promise of steps yet to come. Sleep now with your feet wrapped in warmth. Sleep now knowing the floor will remember you. And when you wake, if you listen closely, you might just hear it. It's a hum, low and steady, coming from the heart of a little cobbler's shop on Old Hollow Lanes. Still singing. Still stitching. Still yours. Good night.